Hi guys, welcome back to another interesting tutorial. This is Ajilam here. Thank you so much for always coming back to watch my videos. If you're new here, you're welcome. Consider subscribing and don't forget to turn on the bell icon so that I get to know anytime I post new videos. So for today's tutorial, I'm going to show us how to cut and sew an elegant high-low flower girl dress for a wedding party. So if you're interested, keep on watching. Alright, here I have all that I'll be using for this project. Here I have a little applique that I'll be adding to the waist, and I have my net. I'm working with 7 yards of net, and this is my satin. This is 1 yard, and I'll also use 1 yard of lining as well. If you want, you can also use 1 yard of hard net, that is for the inside. So here, as you can see, I've cut my net. This is 7 yards, like I said earlier. Here I have 1.5, making it 3 yards, and this is 2 yards each. I'll be making this a 4 layer. That is why I cut this out this way. So as we proceed, you understand why I did this net like this. So before we start, I would like to cut out the upper part. Here I have my bodice pattern. This is going to be for a 2-year-old. In case you don't know how to draft a basic bodice pattern, I have a detailed video on how to go about that, and I'm going to drop the link in the description box so you can check that out. So I will go ahead and cut out my basic bodice before we continue. So this is my bodice part. That's the upper part. I just cut that out, but I'm going to be keeping this aside because I'll be needing this net to use for this upper part. So all I'm going to do is to cut out all that I'll be using for the lower part, and then whatever I have left of my net, I'm going to use it to make or to finish up this upper part. So I'm going to keep it aside. Here I have one of the 2 yards of my net, and I've folded it. It's already in 4 folds, same way you fold when you want to make a full circle dress. So I'm going to use the waist measurement now to get the radius. Remember that we'll be cutting this out like a flare, and then we are going to gather it on the waist side. So now the waist measurement I'm working with is 22 inches. I'm going to multiply that by say 4 or 5 or 3, depending on how much fabric that you're working with. Okay, so I'll be multiplying mine by 4, and then I'll divide that by 6.28, which is the formula for a full circle. So let me just do that calculation quickly before we continue. All right, 22 multiplied by 4 will give me 88. If you divide that by 6.28, it's going to give me 14 inches. So I'll be marking out 14 inches from here. Okay, so that is the radius that I'm working with. This is 14. I'm going to mark it all the way round to this other end. Okay, so before making this calculation, make sure that you have enough fabric to go round, or enough fabric to cover the length of the lower part. So this is 14. I'm going to just mark this all round, and I will use my pin to secure it nicely so that it will not be moving. So this is it. I'll just connect after marking it out. I hope you can see my chalk. Okay, so now this is the radius. By the time we cut, I'll have enough to use as the ruffles. Now the important part of this, which is the length of the lower part, I'm going to move this so you can see it very well. Okay, so now the length of this lower part is going to be 14 inches. So first and foremost, mark out the 14 inches from here. I'm going to mark it all the way down to the other side. This is 14. After marking, I am going to connect. Okay, this part is going to be as a guide. All right. So I'll just keep on marking. All right, here you can see that I just finished marking out the length. That is for the lower part. This is from the waist to the knee measurement. That is what I used first before I'll be adding whatever I want to use to create the high-low effect. So I'm going to cut the radius off now so that I can see it very well. right? So this is off. Now the first layer, I want everything to be 19 inches, okay, after cutting. But before that, let me not confuse you, okay? So this is the line. I hope you can see that, which is the actual length. So now from this midpoint, okay, let me place this back so you understand. This is how it is. So from the midpoint, which is this way, which is here, this is the midpoint, just place your tape straight, okay? Then from there, this is the line that I'm working with. I am going to add just extra 5 or 6 inches to that point. This will help us to connect it to a square shape, okay? So this is it. I will just take my ruler and connect it straight. So I'm going to connect it straight. Okay. And I'm going to do the same on this other side as well. So at the end of the day, we are supposed to have a square. Okay. So let me just cut it off so you can see the shape. Now this is for the first layer. Remember I said I'll be making these 4 layers. So this is just for the first layer. Okay, so this is what I have. As you can see, it's looking like a square. So now the next thing to do is for you to determine how you want the high-low to be. For me, I'll just give it a slight curve. Okay, on this part, just make it to have a slight curve, but not much. If you want, you can also leave it the way it is and you're good to go. Okay, so all I'm going to do is to check what I have here and then take the midpoint. This is 28 and the midpoint is here 14. So I'll just go up by 2 or 3 inches. Okay, I'll go up by say 4 inches. Okay, and then you just connect from this edge, just move it, just to give it that slight curve. Okay, you're going to repeat on this other side as well, and then I'll cut. Now this is what I have. I am going to repeat the same on this other side as well. It is 14. Okay, so this is 14, and then I'll come up again by 4, and then you connect just like that. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this on the other layers that I have. In case you didn't see this very well, by the time I cut off the smallest layer, you are going to see this very well. Okay, so now the first layer is ready, and this is what I have. I am going to open it on this side. This is going to be the zipper allowance side. Okay, all right, so let me keep this aside and show you with the smallest one so you can see all these markings very well. All right, here I have the second layer. Remember I said I'll be making these 4 layers. Now the first layer, remember that the length of the lower part I used 14 inches. So for this I'll be making it 11 inches because I want it to be 3 inches different from each layers. So I'm going to mark out the 11 inches now. This is our 14 inches radius. Okay, so you're going to use the 14 inches all through. So here is 11. I'm going to go mark it all the way around, and then from the center point from the center point. When I said center point, it is from this edge here. You're just going to place your tape straight, okay, just to note that place. So this is it here. Let me make it like a cross so that I will know that this is my center point. This is where I'll be adding whatever I'll be using to make it like a square before cutting it out. So let me go ahead now and mark the 11 inches all round. That is for my second layer. And the third layer, I'll make it 8 inches, while the last one is going to be 5 inches rather. Okay, so and I'll also repeat the same process on the other 2 layers, although I will show you so that you see how all of them will turn out to be. Okay, so I'll just connect. I'll go ahead now and cut this part off so you can see this other side very well. Okay, so now this is the midpoint. Remember, I will just mark out 5 inches, okay, just to connect it, to make it like a square. So I'll just mark. This is very easy. You can just make this dress in 2 hours if you put your mind to it. It's not difficult. So I'll go ahead and connect this other side as well, and then I'll cut. So this is what I have, the square shape. Now I'm going to repeat what I did in the other one just to check the midpoint. Okay, we used 14, remember. Okay, and then I mark out, but for this second layer I will not be using 4 inches. For this second layer I'll make it 3 inches, okay, because I don't want it to be too high. So I'll just go ahead and also connect and cut, and I'll repeat the same on this other side. Now we are almost done with this part. It's not that hard. Okay, so I'll repeat the same on this one, and then I'm going to fold the third layer so we can cut that one as well. Okay, so this is the third layer, and this is one of the 1.5 yard that I showed you earlier. So here I have my 14 inches radius marked out and the length for this third layer. So for this layer I am using 8 inches. Okay, remember I said I wanted 3 inches different from each layer. The last one was 11, so this is 8 inches. So here is the midpoint. Okay, I'm just repeating what I did earlier. So I'm going to mark out 6 inches from there, and then just to connect it to make it a square, and then I'll cut. I'm going to repeat the same process to the last layer so we can start the sewing proper. Okay, so this is it, and I'll connect it as well from this side. So I'll cut it out. So I will now use the same 3 inches that I used to give it that slight curve. And when you want to give your slight curve, make sure it doesn't go upward above the length, that is the actual length of the lower part. Like for example, this is 8 inches, that is the length. As you're giving your curve, make sure that it doesn't exceed this 8 inches, okay? If you do that, it's not going to be good. Just make it to be exactly or below the length you're working with. I hope you understand that part. So I'll just go ahead and cut. Right, this is what I have after joining the 4 layers together. This is 1, 2, 3, and the last one 4. So this is how I want mine to be. If you like, you can also adjust it the other way around and it will still turn out fine. So this is it. And as you can see, I use my gather stitch to run it to hold all the 4 together. So now I will go ahead and pull until I have the waist measurement that I am working with. So after doing this, I'm going to keep it aside so we can finish up the upper side and join it together with this. So this is it. After gathering it, here I have the 22 inches, which is the waist measurement I am working with, and this is how it turned out to be. It's so lovely. So I'm going to keep this aside, and I have my satin here. Okay, so I'll be using this part that, you know, the height of every satin is by 16 inches. So I just folded into 2 and I'll be cutting out 14 inches for this part. That is exactly what I used on my net. By the time I roll hem, the lower part and the waist sewing allowance is going to reduce. So I'll just mark out 14 inches and then cut it out. After cutting it out, I'm going to use my gather stitch as well and sew, and then gather it till I have my waist measurement. So after doing that, I will now join it together with this net. Okay, so I'll just cut this out and then join it together with my net before we continue. Look, I am doing something.
Look, I see.
Tell him to do small now. Seeing this is what I have. Okay, if you want, you can also cut your satin same way you cut your net, and it will also be very nice. So I'm going to keep this aside, and then for the upper part, remember that we're going to be adding a little pleat for that up and some ruffles on the waist side. So to do that, here I have my upper part already cut out. I'll be using same satin as my lining. Okay, so I'm going to keep it separate. Okay, so now this is the one I'll be working with, and here I have some leftover net, like I said earlier, I'll be using for this side. So I'm going to use this one here now to make like 2 or 3 pleats that is going to be on this front. So you're going to repeat the same for this other second side. So I'm just trying to arrange the net, and then I'll just take the plate. Like I said, 1 or 2 is okay. Okay, so this is 1 and this is the second one. This is okay because I want it very small on that shoulder area. Okay, so this is 2. I'll go ahead now and secure it on both ends, and I'll repeat the same for the other side. After doing that, I'm going to fold this part in this way. Okay, and I'll also fold this part in. But before all that, let me just sew the pleats. That is the 2 pleat now, and then I'm going to show you how to fold it in. All right, this is what I have. As you can see, I just finished sewing the pleats. So I am going to cut off this excess here, like 1 inch space, and then I'll cut it all the way through, and I'll do the same on this one as well. Okay, so after doing this now, I am going to take this inward and fold this inward as well, as you can see, and then secure it nicely inside. That way it will not be visible. So I'll just secure it here, and I'll do the same on this other side. After that, I'm going to repeat the same here and then place it on the upper part. So after securing it, this is what I have. Now you can see that this is where the opening is. It's hidden inside. So I'm going to pin it now on the side. Okay, when you want to pin, make sure that you have your sewing allowance here. Okay, don't make it close, and also on the armhole side. So I'm going to pin it now, and then I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and secure it nicely. After that, I'll be cutting out a straight for my ruffles on the waist area, and I'll be using this this is what I have left from my net. Okay, so I'll just cut out, say 3 inches or 3.5 inches, but I'm going to double it, and then I will gather it and place it on the waist. So it's as easy as that. Okay, this is the part that is by 60 inches. That is like 1.5. Okay, so I'm going to use this to do that. Let me just quickly secure this and then join my ruffle so we can just finish up this dress. All right, here I have that all done. This is the ruffles that I said you just gather and sew it on the waist. This is how I just did that. All that is left now is to join the side, and then I'm going to take this lower part and join it. So for your applique, I will not be using this again because it's too wide. I'm going to look for a smaller one. It's just to secure this nicely so that it will not be, you know, moving. So I'm going to look for a smaller one, okay, that is just tiny this way, so you can just secure it this way. Okay, and then I will just close up. You add your lining and your hard net and you're good to go. So I believe you were able to learn 1 or 2 things from today's tutorial. So that is it for today. Please subscribe if you have not, and I will see you all soon.